I'm Linda Rosenbaum, and I have a son who's now 26 years old who has fetal alcohol syndrome. Michael was diagnosed when he was 6 years old. He was born in 1987, so this was 1993. At that time, very few people, if any, including doctors, knew anything about fetal alcohol syndrome. I wish that people at the hospital where my son was born had some idea about fetal alcohol syndrome. So when he was born, because they do all kinds of tests, and he had problems from the get-go. He is adopted, and we adopted him when he was 7 days old. I wished my family doctor, who we took our child to repeatedly, I wish he knew something about fetal alcohol syndrome. I wish the specialists that we were referred to, including a neonatologist, knew something about fetal alcohol syndrome. I guess what I'm most concerned about is there was something wrong with Michael. In my heart, I knew. Michael was uncomfortable in his skin. He had behavioral problems. He was really sensitive to light and sound. He wasn't making eye contact. He wasn't developing as his peers were. And I don't fault people for not knowing something. I don't fault professionals when they don't know something. What I do fault is when they don't know something, they don't say there's a problem here. I respect what you're saying, that there could be something wrong. I will refer you to somebody who might know, and let's explore this together. And I ran into this repeatedly with social service workers. I ran into this with teachers, principals. People were over their heads. They didn't know something. And instead of saying, I don't know, let's find out, they just said, nothing's wrong. And a common comment to mothers particularly is, Mom, you're just being anxious. Go home and relax. Well, that's a mean thing to say to a mother to begin with, because no mother wants to think there's a problem with their child. And the mother is the one who spends 24 hours a day with the child. The doctor, psychiatrist, social service worker, whatever, they spend an hour or 15 minutes, and they have to trust and treat mothers with more respect. I finally said to the doctor, it's time for a referral, and we were referred to the hospital for sick children and to the child development clinic. What I want to mention is that a resident saw us initially, and we were told to come to the hospital with Michael. The resident took us into his office, so there was my husband Robin, my son Michael, and me. Michael's 6 years old. The resident talked to Robin and me, didn't recognize Michael or say hello to him. And he said, when did you first start having problems with Michael? Why is Michael different than other children? Did Michael's birth mother have problems? And my husband and I were sitting there with our jaws open, speechless. My stomach was churning. How could he talk like this in front of Michael? This was awful. Anyways, I called the next day, spoke to the director, Dr. Wendy Roberts, explained the problem. She said she understood completely. She said, I will look after you. Come in next week. We had an appointment with her. She had a team of specialists who took tests of Michael's. They interviewed him. She told us to come in a week later for the results. She was kind. She was just wonderful to us. And she told us that he had fetal alcohol syndrome. And we said, but the birth mother said she didn't drink. And Dr. Roberts was really clear. She said, she lied. He hasn't. She handed us a sheet of paper that she hands out to budding pediatricians who come to the hospital or residents. And it was a diagram, a facial diagram of what a typical person with a child with fetal alcohol syndrome might look like. And they don't all look like this. And it was very eerie. We looked at the sketch drawing. It looked just like our son. It was just like our jaws dropped again. It was very clear. We were able in time to go back to the birth mother, and we did find out that she had been drinking and she had lied on the forms. So that was that. Our experience with Dr. Roberts was absolutely wonderful. She respected our thoughts. She respected our opinions. She was encouraging to us. She let us know that, yes, there's serious problems here, but you've done your best as parents. That really, really meant a lot to us. And one of the things that she was able to do was to address Michael's ADHD. She was able to prescribe meds for that, which had a huge influence on Michael's life in a positive way. She was very encouraging to my husband and I that we were the best parents we possibly could be for him, which meant a lot to us. Specialists, people in social services, also had stereotypes of what a child with FASD, what the symptoms are, and common things that they believed was that they're all extremely aggressive, and because they have no sense of right or wrong, meaning they don't have a conscience. This was like so far from the truth. It was extremely hurtful. And they didn't want to take Michael into certain programs because they thought that he would be disruptive and he would be violent. So I realized very soon to never tell any social service person that I was seeking to work with. I stopped completely saying Michael had FASD, and I described what his problems were. He may have trouble with hygiene. His social skills aren't that great. He has memory problem. He has learning disabilities. The doors would open to me, but if I said FAS, the doors closed. I know things have changed. People do know more about fetal alcohol syndrome today, and there are doctors who know more. But I repeatedly hear stories from mothers or parents about doctors not knowing anything about it, their children not being diagnosed until many years later, and they just lived horrific lives, struggling tremendously because the message is you're being a bad parent. Something's wrong with you, that you're not disciplining your child enough. And the mother senses that there could be something wrong here.